So today we're doing an update on the 49 Ford and what we're learning about it. So let's get into it. So let's do a refresher on this truck. This is a 1949 Ford all original pickup that a friend of mine had, and it has a 6-cylinder in it, not a flathead V8. And I was told around 1 in 20 trucks had this 6-cylinder. So we had to wait almost 10 or 12 months, something like that, just for them to pour new pistons for this thing. That motor is brand new, completely rebuilt by Dunbar Automotive. And we are doing an original restoration with drum brakes and 6-volt wiring because he wants to know what it's like to drive this thing in 1949. You know, throw a couple of hay bales in the back, drive it around his farm. And because it's an original restoration, that was never my thing. So I hired a team of guys that I thought could get it done quickly. We were hoping for like 6 months. I don't even know. I'm guessing we're around the 3-year mark. It could be even longer. And so turned out this has probably been the toughest project we have ever had in 7 years. Because my team fell apart. We lost a member of the team who was doing a majority of the work. Mr. White's dad, this is the one he was working on when we lost him. And he did all of the metal work. Like we did all new floors, new firewall. All the fenders are LMC fenders. The whole box is a bed in the box kit. A ton of new parts, and parts from all different manufacturers and companies. And that's when you get to learn about fitment. It seems parts don't fit very well anymore. And these trucks, I know they didn't fit together very well when they made them, but it seems like fenders and doors fit even worse. Thankfully on this truck, we have original doors. On the front fenders, we got this thing in paint. And of course, obviously, we probably should have done a lot more fitting before painting because we got it all in paint, and then we found out that these LMC fenders were about 1 inch out from the body. So we had to slice them and add some metal to stretch them. And then of course, we have to paint this panel here now. So we're learning all about fitment on this truck. This radiator, for example, I don't know where the radiator came from because I was not the one who ordered the parts, and it was in a box with no brand name on it. So I don't have a clue what company made this radiator, and all of the bolt holes line up, but the drain plug has been installed about 2 inches over from where you need access to it. So that means we have to cut this panel and move that over a little bit. Weird little things like that. Let's see, this panel here, this panel we have to sand down and paint and weld up a couple of spots, and it fills in this little gap here. And you have a battery box right behind it, and the panel and the battery box and this panel all kind of fit together in one using that stud. A couple of bolt holes for the battery box. The battery box has 4 mounting points, but only 2 holes. I'm gonna have to do a little more Googling on that because I'm not a fan of drilling holes in frame, especially when you're doing something like this. We're trying to stay original as close as we can. And I know it's not gonna be a big horsepower monster, so it's not gonna cause any damage, but just, you know, we're trying to keep it original and not drill holes where we don't need to. So you have to fit that together, and we still cannot get shocks for this thing. And this side's a little bit snug, so I would like to be able to paint all of this, all these panels, install it with the shock so that you're not scratching anything. Just all of it at once, you're done. You have the battery box. Kind of a weird little question I have. You have this piece right here, and it kind of sticks over into the battery box. So when the engine torques over, is it going to touch the battery? Little details like that, which we got to get the motor running, so we have to wire it up. There's things you have to do in order, I've learned on this truck. So today we're learning. Like, for example, the steering column. I was hoping to throw the steering column in because it's only a few bolts and you can mount the steering wheel because, you know, that's exciting to me. But after watching a lot of videos, doing a lot of Googling, it's a lot easier and makes your life a lot better if you mount the wiper motor under the dash and then wire up your gauges and then install your steering column so that you have more room. So we are now finally getting on this wiring, and I have probably a couple of weeks into reading about this, and I'm not a wiring expert. So learning about wiring is a whole new category for me. It's something I've avoided. So for example, you have your original wiper motor, which is a vacuum operated wiper motor, and we are now going with this upgraded wiper motor. And this is the kind of stuff I like. Learning about this. This is really cool. So you got a little dial here, and you turn the dial and that thing moves right there. That is your speed adjustment, as far as I know, for your wiper motor. And what would happen is you would be driving down the highway and say you step on the gas to pull out to pass the car, well, you lose a bunch of vacuum and your wipers slow down. And to me, I think, oh, that's just so cool to learn about. So that's what makes me enjoy building these things. When you get to learn the little details they used to do back in the day, like something like that you will never see on a vehicle ever again, which is very cool. So I'd like to keep that for the customer just cause. And what you have to do with this electric motor is you have this little piece here. Just go like that, like that. We have to take this bracket and transfer it over to there. We have to remove that piece because we need that one right there. This one just goes back and forth. And you have your little arm that goes onto there. See, there's nothing on this one to hook your linkage up to. So it took me a little while to figure that out. Thankfully, Norm, who's an aircraft mechanic just down the way, he was wandering by and he loves this truck. Every time he sees it outside, he's got to stop and look. And he's brilliant doing what he does for a living. He's working on really old airplanes, and him and I sat down, looked at the wiring diagram, and having a brain like that in the room, holy, do you understand a lot. He makes it so easy that it actually gives you confidence to jump all over this and go, yeah, I don't need anybody. And the funny thing is, the minute I said, hey, thanks, Norm, I can do this myself, the original crew, minus Mr. White's dad, has come together, and I actually have 3 guys scheduled to work on this thing tomorrow, and I'm so excited you have no idea. So tomorrow our plan is to try and get all of the front end in paint. We're going to get a pile of this wiring handled with, you know, having 4 of us all together. Because we'll go over this Ron Francis wiring kit. We have a Ron Francis wiring kit. This is a 6-volt universal kit, and it had no instructions with it, so I was stressing right out. And Norm and I were going through this manual that I ordered off of eBay. This is an original shop manual, 49, 50, and 51. Look at that, 1952 supplement. This thing is so handy. It has the exact wiring diagram you need for this entire truck. And we have assembled this truck based on the pictures in the LMC catalog, because we didn't recognize the parts. We're used to building more stuff that's a little more modern, but that is how we assembled the truck, by looking at these pictures. And this wiring kit, not only do they have them all separated, like, you know, turn signal, brake switch, horn wiring, dash gauges, but every single wire is labeled. Battery, feed, heater. All of the wires have writing on them, and they are labeled. So my question is, why are all vehicles not made like this today? Because when you get under the dash and you're trying to sort out an electrical problem, it would sure make life easier if you grab a wire and go, oh, hey, that's the heater wire, or that's the battery feed, or whatever, that's the fuel pump. I think all wiring harnesses should be made this way. That is spectacular. It's going to make life so easy. So that led to a lot of Googling on where is everything going to get mounted. We have a fuse block, and this truck did not have a fuse block. It had a couple of breaker switches that you reset in your gauges on the back side. So this is meant to work with that. But where do you mount the fuse block? So we got to get things like the wiper motor and the gauges all installed so that we can wire them up properly and figure out where we want the fuse block. The other thing I was Googling was, a lot of guys were trying to mount the fuse block behind the seat, and they're trying to run the wires through the floor pan or the shifter. But that's, to me, that's hot rodder style. We have a fuel tank behind the seat. We don't want any wiring near it, or a fuse block anyway, and we want original style. So I have to do some Googling on how they actually ran the wiring. That'll be my job while they're doing it. The reason I've struggled so much myself with this is due to a lot of physical issues as well. 3 back surgeries, and I got a massive hernia, so I'm struggling to get any of the projects done. I do need help these days to get all this handled. I cannot physically work on the vehicles myself, so we are getting through it. Now getting to the fun part of, yay, I have help. Yay, I understand it. Whether they show up or not, I'll be able to get this thing together. But that is your update on the 49 Ford, on what I have learned about it so far. And next week, you should have another update on this thing